Hello, I'm Rich from bugoutvehiclesuk. The purpose of this video, I've been building off-grid vehicles for around about 15 years now. What this is basically we're going to show you the new generation of off-grid electrics, battery management, battery storage, that kind of thing. It'll give you more information, so as you're choosing your equipment and you're choosing what you want for your vehicle, you're more informed yourself, so then you can move forward with your build. Okay, we're going to split this into kind of two parts. This will make more sense later on. The first part being, this is what I call the infrastructure, so this will be how you get the energy in via either solar or battery to battery, charging off the vehicle it's driving, and how it's stored. The second part of the vehicle will be the fuse board, the containment running around the vehicle, the wiring, the sockets, the lighting, that kind of thing. It's all the same, however, I do think it breaks down into two parts, where one of it, you've got your high ampage, your big expensive items. The other side of it is the smaller stuff that people think is the main part of the build, but it really isn't. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the solar, what I've used, why I've used it. We're going to look at the cabling, we're going to look at the batteries, we're going to look at the control gear. The biggest thing from this one is it's the battery systems, how and why they're done. Okay, so we're going to go to Oak Tree Motorhomes now, home of Lithium. We're going to have a look at what they've got, what they do, and we're going to have a run through what they're doing. Before we get too far into this video, I will say there will be a few items linked down below. There'll be the link for Oak Tree Motorhomes, where I've got the solar, the management systems, and the batteries. There'll also be a discount code on the Tree Lithiums below, so if you want to check that out, I highly recommend having a look at what they do, because there's a lot of a wealth of information there. Less talking, let's get in there, let's have a look round. Then what we'll do is I'll give you a quick look round of a few bits while I'm actually on site. Then what I'll do is I'll run you through the bits on my vehicle and how it's been done and why it's been done. I've got him now, I've got him talking. Oh. So what Rob's saying is, this is better than a generator. So there'll be a lot of people out there that'll go, the end of the world comes, I'll just run my generator. Well, you've got another engine, more moving parts, you've got fuel to acquire, things like that. You get a bit of bad fuel or bad servicing, you're done. Whereas something like this,
which is a DC to DC or a battery to battery charger, it's the same thing, people call it DC to DC or battery to battery, and that will give you 30 amps out of your alternator whilst protecting your alternator. So if you've got snow, a foot of snow on your solar, or you've had 2 weeks of no sunshine and you are low, that is better than carrying a Honda generator. That'll put 30 amps in off your alternator whilst protecting it as well, so it doesn't work too hard or overheat, anything like that. So there's no fuel, the initial outlay, these are about £250. We use the isolated one, which is about £20 more. It's also smart. It goes to you Bluetooth on your phone, so you can see exactly what's going into the vehicle. I mean, they're 250 quid. So other than some cable.
And with that, the biggest thing that I'd say with that one is what these will accept charge rate.
Yes.
You're not running the vehicle for very long at all to get the same amount of power into that as you would a generator going into a lead battery.
Exactly, because with lithium, it's 90% bulk and 10% float charge. With lead, it's the opposite way round. As you know, old school charging, it's 18-20 hours from a pretty flat lead battery, otherwise you're going to damage it. You can put 50 amps in that 100 amp battery and charge it from flat in 2 hours. So if you've got one of these on, 369, you're going to charge a flat battery in 3 hours. I mean, you wouldn't do
3
that.
hours versus a day.
And if your little split charge relay, what puts in normally 8 to 10 amps. And again, you couldn't even use this with a lead battery because it couldn't take that much charge. You can't give a lead battery 30 amps, for 2 hours solid. It wants to go on to float at some point, I mean, what, a Honda generator is going to be £1,000, £1,300. That's cost £250. Plus you haven't got the fuel, the size, the weight, the hassle. and it's just on the key.
The biggest thing for me is I spend a lot of hours draining the batteries and not a long time charging them.
Yeah.
So this works where it comes back up fast and then use it, whereas a lot of the overland community, unless you're driving 10-12 hours a day and putting that constant charge in there, you're not getting the electric back in. So over the space of 2-3 days, you are killing your batteries.
The other thing to think is as well, I mean, if everybody's had it, your engine, your batteries are getting low, start the engine, let it tick over. It's a really inefficient way to let your engine run for maybe an hour to put 8 to 10 amps in. It gets you enough just for a bit longer, but it's not putting a substantial return. Whereas with that, you're putting 30 amps, plus you can still leave your split charge relay connected. You can end up with 38 amps going in. So very, very quickly you can put back that charge, and it's normally, obviously, when you need it. So to put that engine on or do a short run and you're back up again, if you're wild camping or you're moving on to the next site, you're back up to 100% before you know it. I mean, it's.
And the other thing as well is, with the solar combined with the battery to battery, between the solar and running the vehicle for 45 minutes, you've done a day's worth of driving as far as the battery's concerned.
And use very little fuel, and you were driving anyway, rather than having separate dedicated petrol for a generator or whatever. You were going to drive somewhere anyway, so you've actually just borrowed off that energy resource that was going to run off, the alternator was going to run anyway. You may as well have free extra energy off it.
We're just putting this away, but this is lighter than one of my 110 amp batteries. And how much ampage is in this?
320 amps.
320 amps, so that's the equivalent of around 700 amps of lead in less weight than one lead battery.
And I'm not that strong, really.
And it's also inside here, this has got its own control unit for safety, so you can short this out, you're not going to set a fire, and it keeps it safe. Phenomenal. I'm getting all excited again talking about this stuff because I've learned something, but at the same time it just works. So one big thing with the difference between the lead and the lithium is the way that it'll put the power out under load. So a bit more tech on that, we'll get the expert in there.
I don't know about expert, but no, we were just discussing that one of the benefits that you'll find if you've got a lead battery that's sort of fully charged or half discharged, when you put a load on it, you get the Puget effect, which is where the voltage curve drops even faster under load, and then when you let the power off, if you're at high demand, it will sort of come back up and settle again. Whereas lithium will not bend, the power curve will well, it's not even a curve, the power line will be virtually straight. So you'll get a lot more out of an inverter or anything that's putting a high load on. Heating, TVs, some of the TVs use quite a bit. So, I mean, you can run a light bulb on a piece of wire off a lead battery just the same as lithium probably, and you could take it all the way down, but it won't run anything of any substance. It's got a bit more of a high demand or a high draw. That's where the lithium will really make the difference, because it will still give you a 12 volts and above for sort of 90 amps out of 100 amps. Whereas lead, you can use the say 50%, to run something very low, but you won't run anything of any substance. 50%, no way at all. We've proved that time and time again. We're doing this for 25 years now, and we see it all the time.
And I think this comes back to those of you that use power tools. When you're using the new lithium batteries, you'll be using a big SDS drill, and it'll work and work and work and work and work, and then it just stops. It's not like the old NiCad batteries or something like that, where it's kind of turning, but it's got no real balls behind it. It's doing its thing because that's where the curve's going down, whereas the lithium just works all the way across and then stops when it's getting to the point where it needs a charge. Right, to give you an idea, shape, size, scale, because I think a lot of the people on these videos are either at the back of a vehicle or it's a small vehicle based thing. So you've got something like this, which is less than 3 kg. On this, it's 24 amps. That 24 amps out of something this size is the equivalent of around 50 amps, if not more, of a lead acid. So you take that one on board and you've got something like this that's just 30 amp. So this is the equivalent of the size of a car battery, but the difference being it weighs absolutely nothing. I mean, this one alone is 3.9 kg. 3.9 kg for 30 amps of 12 volt is phenomenal. that is something that's going to get you, you know, that'll last most people for the weekend with a bit of solar. And then you go up to this kind of thing here. That one battery is more than the entire system that I was going to run on the DAF. That one battery. So yeah, there's options, and you know I love a good option. So there we go. So when you're looking at these kind of builds, you really need to decide where you're going to put the budget. What I would say, there's a lot of solar out there. From what I've used over the years, I've used cheaper solar, I've used better solar, and I've used the Victron solar, and there's no comparison, especially when you start to come to cloudy days, or the biggest one is you've just got a bit of an obstruction, like a bit of a branch or something like that. The cheaper panels die off real quick. The more expensive ones kind of work around it, and they'll use the available cells that they've got. So me personally, after this kind of fit out, I'm definitely leaning towards spending that little bit more money. It might take you a bit longer to put the project together, but I'd say it was definitely worth the more money in getting the better products, because it's a trusted name for the bigger brands for a reason, if that makes sense. I know everyone's to a budget, but that's just where I'm at with this now. I've done both and I've learned. Especially when you start to look at things like this. Look at the thickness of that on that panel. It's nothing. I've gone for one of these. Just because it's a lot of ampage to put in. I've got the real estate on the roof, so I can work with that. The one thing I keep coming back to though is, I think what it is at work, we have big fire alarm batteries that are this size, but the weight, there's no way I can hold this stuff out like it's nothing. I'd actually advise doing this while I'm just at Oak Tree Motorhomes. I'm having a nosy round a few of the vehicles. For a self-builder, this is absolutely awesome, because in this car park there's 2 or 3 decades of different shapes, sizes, models, designs and all the rest of it, and it's amazing how much you'll just clock a couple of good ideas, you know, like how they've done the cupboard system, how they've done the layout, how they've done the cookers, things like that. So I'd highly recommend having a look at how other people do it, because for years and years and years I had my copy and paste, started off with the Land Rover 90, then I went to the 110, then I went to the 110 double cab, I had the trailer with the roof tent on, I've had all different roof tent setups, I've had all different battery setups, charging setups, things like that, and you kind of get pigeonholed into your one little thing. You go to see how professional motorhome companies do it, how professional fit-out companies do it and all the rest of it. They've got a different approach again, and it's not too far apart, but it's, you know, when it's almost like refined and you can put your own thing on it. So yeah, loving the ideas of these, because like this is a little bit bigger than the next trailer that I'm going to build, so it's good to see. It's good to get an idea. So anyway, real talk. So the reason I'm at Oak Tree Motorhomes and I've gone for the Ecotree lithium batteries is, I'm going to be the first here to say, put my hands up, I was wrong. The reason I was wrong, I was that guy that went around saying I'm not driving around with a bomb on board, if it sets on fire we're doomed and all the rest of it. Rob's educated me on this, and it's one of them things where each battery has its own safety device built into it, into the top of it. So if you can imagine, that box contains hundreds of little lithium batteries all joined together, and then on the top of it there's a controller which manages it. So if it gets too low, before it damages, unlike a lead battery, it'll just shut off. If it's too cold, it'll shut off so it won't cause damage. If it's too hot or overcharged or anything like that, it shuts off. If you get a spanner and put that directly across the terminals, which, you know, if you do that with a lead battery, you're welding, it just turns off. So the safety features are up here. Okay, the other thing as well is, although the cost of a lithium battery is very expensive, the value of it is very high as well, because it actually works out cheaper than what I've done without knowing, because the way I've done it is I abuse batteries. And I think that's why Rob's kind of got in touch and said this will work for you quite confidently. Is what I do is I buy lead batteries. I have to replace them on average every 18 months to 2 years, because I run them so low. Because when I'm in the woods and there's no solar and I'm hammering it, all the usage and stuff, I'm running them right the way down. And with a lead battery, you can go down, you can use around 40% of whatever it says on the side. There'll be people out there that say, oh, now you can use a lot more. Yes, you can use a lot more, and I've been using a lot more. The downside of that is every time you do that, you then damage that battery, and it never comes up back all the way. Although the voltage will say it's back up all the way, you don't have the usable ampage of what it says on the side once you've done this a few times. And you'll notice that when you'll run all the small things all you want, the phone chargers, the little lights, things, not a problem. When you will come to notice this is when you put in the higher ampage items, like your fridges. When your fridge is running, my Snowmaster runs at 5.2 amp while that kicks in. It's not a constant 5.2, but for the few seconds that it runs, it's 5.2. You've got a damaged battery. Once you've used that first 10, 20, 30%, because you've not got the oomph behind the battery anymore, it's not going to power things properly, even though the voltage says that it's okay. The diesel night heater, again, that's around 5 amps when it's at full tilt and it's doing its first burn. These things, if your battery's not 100%, will do damage, and this is why I'm going through every 18 months to 2 years killing a battery off. I've justified buying cheaper batteries because I'll say, right, I'm spending £90 or £100 on a battery, so that's £200 every 2 years, £100 a year. Rob's doing a minimum of 6-year guarantee. He's got a 6-year guarantee, and he reckons he can get about 10 years out of what I use. So for one of the batteries, it works out cheaper running that than it does to continually use cheap batteries that don't perform anywhere near. So on that one, the kind of fors and against, well, there isn't actually an against apart from the price, which again, it's value for money, so it's that balance. Right, so I've got two 110 amp lead batteries in my original setup. Out of that, you've probably got around out of both, yeah, about 90 amps of usable, call it 95 amps of usable power amps out of that. Out of that 90, 100 amps, that's really, really good, but the downside of that is there's 60, nearly 70 kg in weight, because they're over 30 kg per battery, which is weight, its size, it's all the rest of it. For that kind of comparison, if you went to one 110 amp lithium battery, you've got 90 to 100 amps of usable power out of one battery. Okay, so and that weighs a third. Okay, so it's that much difference. So weight saving, you're running a third of the weight, and you're running twice the ampage if you had the same, two batteries, but you only need to use one. That's the bit that people can't get their head around, and I couldn't get my head around. I've had two 110 amp hour batteries fitted again, just because Rob knows that I'm going to go into the woods in winter, I'm going to get very little solar, and I am going to hammer these things and give them some stick. What I will say is, over the last month, I've left my fridge running non-stop, 24 hours a day. I've also been leaving my light on while I've been at home. I'm putting the internal lights on, as well as running a few other little items. And every time I go to check the battery, the lowest I've seen it is around, I think it was 96% is the lowest I've seen it, and that's in a morning when there's not been much solar. The lights, the sun's only just come out over the last hour or two, and it's overcast. One of the big things that's got me on this, and this is the bit that I didn't understand, is how fast these will take a charge, okay? So these will take a massive amount of ampage, at least 30 amps they'll absorb at once. So if I've got 2 batteries, both taking on 30 amps each, that's 60 amps an hour that I'm taking on board. So if I've got the solar going full tilt and I run the engine at the same time as well, I can be chucking in the full amount that it can put in. And this is a big difference in where the lead just totally fails. And this is where I found myself in the past rationing electric. And there'll be a few of you out there that live in a vehicle for a period of time where you ration electric and you look at what's coming back in. And it's not what the voltage says, it's what the ampage says. To charge a lead acid battery from flat, you're looking at around 18 hours. To charge one of the Eco Tree batteries, you're looking at just over 2 hours. So that's a hell of a difference. That's phenomenal. You know, if you've got enough solar, by the time you get out of bed in the morning in summer, that thing's on 100%, and I've done it. I've even left the fridge going, the lights going, everything. Woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, looked at my phone for the Bluetooth, 100% on the batteries. It's unbelievable. And it sounds like I'm hyping it. I am genuinely, like I say, I've been proven wrong on it. And with this place, you've seen other YouTubers go in here. Urban Motorhome, Darren, he put me onto this place, big thanks. There's been a few others that have come down here. It's not just me hyping it up because they've sorted me out, it is he's that confident. He's given me no stipulation on what I can say, how I can show it, and all the rest of it. He's put it on my vehicle and went, I know it's good, just tell people. And like I say, he's proven me wrong, and I can see the value for money to the point where the DAF build's coming on now. I've only got the gearbox to put, well, Damo's got the gearbox to put back on, road test that, and then the DAF's getting absolutely smashed. And first thing that I'm going to be buying is Eco Tree batteries and another Victron solar panel and control gear, because the control gear alone, that's another item where I've always had decent solar panels, decent control gear, and cheap batteries. With the setup that they've put in, and it's one of them things where I've just said, you do you know, what do I need? They've put a 360 watt Victron solar panel on the roof. They've put a Victron battery to battery charger. They've put a Victron solar controller and a Victron shunt. The reason you have the shunt on is because with lithium batteries you can't get an ampage reading, because they'll just show 100% of the voltage. They'll show high voltage all the time, even when they're going down. What the shunt does is it measures how much ampage is coming in, how much ampage is going out. It knows how big the batteries are, so it gives you a percentage reading. So by doing that, you get an accurate, you can even log how much solar's coming in each day, you can see how much you're using each day, everything like that. So you can actually work out how you need to alter, adjust your patterns to suit. At the minute, I don't have to do that because it is doing 3 or 4 or 5 times what I need. So like I say, the majority of the time when I go to it, I'm either on 100% or 98%. It's high. It's only when I really abuse it I can get it slightly lower. The test's going to be winter. UK, the sun gets real low. That's why I've got the solar panel on the front of my vehicle, for those that say it's in the wrong place, because it just doesn't get high enough in the hemisphere, high enough up in the sky that it can hit a lot of the top panels. That's why I have it how I have it. I have the one on the roof that's sat below the roof rack, so trees and things keep it safe. It's safe from trees with the roof rack. And then I have the one on the front, so when the sun's low in the sky I can still point the vehicle at it. Both of them aren't in a perfect location, but both of them are in a location that is usable for my application. Take that on board, you know, however you want, and roll with that however you want. What I would say from the other people that have come down here, I've made life a little bit easy for them because I brought them a blank canvas. What I did is I stripped everything out and just said, right, here's where the electrical cupboard is going to go, that's where I would like things. They fitted everything out to that, but what I would say is if you've got an existing vehicle, what a lot of the other YouTubers have had is they've turned up, they've took one look at the electrics and gone, right, we'll adjust things. So they've sorted out safety issues, and they've also sorted out a few other little bits and pieces and improved the wiring. So it's always good to have a safety check, because things rattle, things get old, things get broken. and sometimes so-called professionals will fit stuff that's not professional, and with the 25 years that these have been doing this, they've got the right people on board and they'll guarantee the work. So in this section here, what we've got the solar array on the roof and on the front. The solar is 360 watts on the roof. The front panel, the flexi one, is around 100 watts. Okay, so we've got 460 watts of usable solar. From there, it comes into the smart solar system, and then that goes down to through the shunt first, and then up to the batteries. What that does is it gives an accurate amount of energy that's coming in and out. As well as that, we've got the DC to DC charger. This unit here is used when we're driving, so this will charge whenever the engine's running. This will put a charge in. So between the two of them, even on your average kind of day, I can fully recharge these batteries in 2 hours, which a lead acid battery is around 18 hours, so just bear that in mind. As well as that, we've got a fuse board here. This is going to be in part 2 of the video, like I've said before. This will be the smaller side with the power distribution, the sockets, the lighting, that kind of thing. I've still got a bit of work to tidy these cables up and put the containment on a bit of them, so just please bear that in mind. But as you can see here, so we've got solar control, battery to battery, and a shunt, which is what measures everything, because on these, like I said before, these will test perfectly at high voltage all the way through to when they drop off. So there's none of that, you know, slowly going down where you've used a bit of it, a high ampage item kicks in and it won't power it. This will power right till the last bit, and this gives you the accurate reading. All of it's Bluetooth, all of it goes to your phone. There'll be some people screaming about EMPs and things like that, but it's one of them. You either have it or you don't. I've chose to have it. I've had 2 little posts put in here, so you can always charge from here on a smart charger if you wanted to the house, which I'm not right fussed about because the solar's putting so much in. Main thing is appropriate fuses everywhere, you can see. So you've got big fuse here, you've got fuses everywhere, because if it goes down, it's a lot easier to replace a fuse than it is anything else. Last thing you want your vehicle burning down. Try and have a pretty clear cupboard when you're doing something like this, because if anything was to happen, I can get in here, I can get the little multimeter out, you can get in, you can chop change. I'm planning on having a big inverter up there, and then that can do a coffee machine up in the top, and then there's also room. I'm going to put a couple of little storage bags here with all the spare fuses, tools, electrical tools, things like that, so it's dedicated, isn't it? Right, so there you go. I mean, that was a lot of information there, a lot of bits and pieces to take on board, but it was those bits of information that showed me that the lithium batteries out there now are the best bang for the buck. They're the best battery on the market now. Although the cost is high, the value's up there with it, so you justify it. It's also cheaper than having the lead like I've been doing in the past. So combined with the good Victron solar, the good Victron control gear, and the EcoTree battery, I can safely say I've run this now for over a month. It's more like 2 months. A month of that I left the fridge going and the light periodically on non-stop, even through overcast and through bad weather, and it's just absolutely smashed it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to continue this. This isn't just a one-shot thing, because you know what YouTube's like, videos do well, they do poor, there's no way of telling which is which, so I'm going to refer back to this later on when the bad weather comes. So when we start to go down to having shorter days, longer nights, there's less solar coming in, when I go out to the weekend camps, we're going to do a comeback to this middle of winter, when it's cold, when nothing performs well, and that's when I can, you know, say it smashed it. I'm confident it will. After the few weeks that I've had of playing with it, I'm confident. By far, it's outperformed any system I've had tenfold. So there's no rationing energy. There's no thinking I best turn my fridge off at this time and just, you know, not use anything else. There's no turn the lights off. None of that. Those of you that have done this, that you'll appreciate that. So what I'll do, as I've said before, links down below. If you found this useful at all, please give us a thumbs up, a comment, possibly even a share to a group. Helps me massively, and it offsets, you know, a bit of the time that I've put into making this. Huge thanks to Ecotree. Like I say, the discount code, it's BOVUK. That's down below. There'll be a link to them. Let them know I sent you, or if you've got any inquiries, get in touch with them. Very, very helpful people. Tell them who sent you. Thanks for supporting the channel. I'll see you on the next one. We've got a few camps and bits and pieces, but I think once the Patreon bit's out of the way and a few little odds and sods, it's going to be on with the DAF build. So big truck build coming on. Thank you. See you later. Goodbye.